Today's guest is Eleanor Mooney, a Filipino-American entrepreneur based in New York. She's the founder of deVivre Concierge, a high-end lifestyle service for New York's elite, and a lingerie brand for women in motion. Eleanor's story blends grace and grit, shaped by her years as a competitor skater, her time at the Sorbonne, and a childhood steeped in Filipino warmth and work ethic. But that tension between poise and pressure followed her into business until one night at dinner, a client email sent her spiraling into a panic attack. And that moment changed everything. In this episode, we talk about unlearning the need to please, redefining success through boundaries, and finding a rhythm between ambition and ease. This is the Asian Rebel Club podcast, a space for the ones who grew up chasing approval and are now learning how to be free. I am Crystal Ren, entrepreneur, creative, and recovering achievement addict. Each week, we dive into honest conversations with Asian rebels, rewriting what success, identity, and freedom really mean. If you're ready to live your story, not somebody else, welcome home. Hi, Eleanor. Welcome to the Asian Rebel Club show.
Crystal, thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. I was just telling you, I'm just such a fan of the podcast that you do and the people that you bring on. And it's great to have an outlet like this and to have conversations like this.
It's my honor to have you as well. So, Eleanor, tell us about yourself and your upbringings.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder of a Filipino women-owned lingerie line here in New York City. My mother is Filipina. I was raised in Massachusetts, which is Northeast United States. And I moved to New York about 15 years ago, having worked in retail, and met my co-founder of Verdant there, who is also Filipina. And we bonded over the fact that we did lingerie, and she kind of opened me up to this Filipina community here in New York. And now we have this big community of Filipinas that we have as friends, and a lot of them kind of are mentors to me as well. So yeah, that brings me to here with you today and to talk about Verdant and to talk about my upbringing as a Filipino American.
Yes, I know that you are half Filipino and half Caucasian. Tell us about how that affects you, because you're a daughter of an immigrant, but you're also white presenting, right? And how has that shaped the way that you show up in business today, and also kind of your thought process in general?
Yeah, I think this is something I've thought about a lot over the last few years, especially, I mean, I don't know how familiar your listeners are with what happened during COVID, like early on COVID in the US with the George Floyd protests and a lot of the things that had happened. And because I'm white presenting, I think a lot of people just see me as a Caucasian woman. And that was not my upbringing. I was raised with an Asian mother in a city, like a small city that had a lot of diversity. I mean, there were a lot of white children, but there were a lot of Puerto Rican students as well, South American students. My sister, who does look more Filipina, she's very dark skinned. She's actually very mixed. People can never really tell where she's from.
Yeah.
She was the only Asian, and I was also one of the only Asian students in my class of.
But she probably looked more Asian than you, so she probably got treated differently than you, right?
Yes, exactly. And so during the protests a few years ago, a lot of these conversations that came up over Facebook, over social media, where people that she was friends with and she was raised with started talking about, like the other end of the spectrum where people are like, all lives matter. And, for her, that was something that being raised in a city where there weren't a lot of Asian students, where there weren't a lot of Asian kids, she did kind of feel left out and like other. And I think being white presenting, that was something that I kind of took for granted until that moment. It was always in the back of my mind, having an Asian mother who other students and even friends would make comments about her accent or the food that was cooked in the house or like the decor in the house. But that was always something I was really proud of. I was always really proud of my Filipino background and cooking Filipino food with my mom and her friends and our family. It was something that was really important to me. And we had a lot of my mom's family members come to the US and live with us when they first moved here. So it was always a part of bringing.
Yeah.
But a lot of that came out over the last few years, and it made me really think about the way people think of the people in their
Hmm.
lives or, like, don't think about the people in their lives and, like, how different their life is if they look differently than them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it must be really interesting for you to witness that, obviously you are part of the family system as well, but you obviously look differently from your mother and also probably sound differently from your mom as well. And in the same time, you also look differently from your sister, right? And how does that make you feel by witnessing, their different experiences, as a part of the family?
Yeah. When I'm with I think a lot of mixed race kids would say this. I have a lot of cousins who are also mixed, and when they're with their family, they don't really think about it. And I think it's more like when you're with other people and other people make comments. Like when I was growing up, a lot of people would assume my sister was adopted because we would often be my mom worked a lot. She was in hospitality, so she worked a lot of hours, and my dad would
Right.
take us from sports. And so they would see my sister and I with my dad, who is like a tall white man, and they would assume she
Yeah.
was adopted.
My
And no
gosh.
one ever, I know, no one ever assumed when I was with my mom that I was adopted for some reason. But when my sister was with my dad and I, they would.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so maybe with your mom, they're like, oh, maybe she just married a Caucasian man, and with your dad, because like the contract is so different. People are like, well, that's probably not possible that she was, like from him, right? So I don't know. Like probably that's the assumption that people are making, but that must be like so hurtful for your sister too, right? Just because she probably grew up with this almost like a split identity in terms of who she knows she is and how she's perceived versus for you, the gap is probably a lot smaller, right? Just because, the sheer
Yeah.
coincidence that, you look differently.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about this before, but as you talk about it, I think, like, I really relate and connect to my mom's side of the family, and my sister, I think, really relates to my dad's side of the family. I don't know if that's because like, we were really trying to, like, connect to the side that we didn't feel like we were necessarily
Yeah.
belong to. And it
Yeah.
is I don't know if funny is the right word, but, like, when I meet Filipinas, I always ask them if they're Filipina or, like, if they look Filipina.
Right.
And they're always so
Yeah.
surprised I am. The first thing I think older generations will always be like, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I am." Like, my mom's
Yeah.
Filipino,
Yeah.
but
I think we
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always try to like almost like overcompensate for the part that we don't feel like seeing, right? And we know that we are, and we try to like, there's just different coping mechanisms. And I think that for you and also for your sister, it seems to be like, let me just prove to other people that like I'm this as well. I know I'm this, you can see I'm this, but I'm also this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the overcompensation, you're spot on. That's, I think, exactly it.
That's very interesting. So I know that you built two businesses, right? So one is a concierge business, another one is lingerie business, as you mentioned about. And I didn't know that your mom was in hospitality as well. So
Yeah.
I guess, how did you come up with the concierge businesses, and how did your mom and what she did influence you to do that?
Yeah, I think she had a huge influence over both my sister and I in terms of the way that we communicate with people and the way we serve people. And it's been a big part of my service to my community and my service to my customers.
Hmm.
I think when people think of Filipinas, they think of like very friendly people who cook really good food. And having my mom work in hospitality when I was younger, I saw her around people all the time who knew her name and like she remembered their name and she knew all these little details about them. And they just felt so warm and welcome, even though it wasn't necessarily at our home, it was like out at the place where she worked. She just made
Right.
everyone feel so welcomed and included. And I think that really was ingrained in me when I went into customer service. It was
Hmm.
something that's really important to me to make people feel included. And I don't know, I think there's a part of it where, like, I saw my mom do that, but I also saw my mom not be included and my sister not be included in
Mm.
certain things. Felt that it was really important that everyone does feel included when they're a part of something. Um,
Right.
and I think also just the way Filipinas naturally are, like, they're very, I think sometimes to the detriment, like, overly giving.
Right.
And finding that balance. I know we were just talking about your last episode, like boundaries. Like I think
Yeah.
Philippines a really difficult time with boundaries. Like a lot of them don't
Yeah.
know boundaries at all.
Yeah.
So I learn a lot about boundaries, but also like still wanting to give to people because it's so much of like who I am and so much of where I came from.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
that balance between the two has been
Yeah.
tricky, but it's also, I think, made my businesses really successful because it is all
Yeah.
about serving their people and providing a service to people who need help and need support,
Right.
especially women in New York who are doing
Mhm.
everything.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, I can only take New York in small doses. Every time I go there, I just feel like I burn out fast. The pace is just a little bit too fast. I think you just need to get used to it, right? If you want to stay there. I wanted to know because, obviously concierge services for C-suite, that just sounds like a very demanding job where there's a lot of moving pieces and you probably need to like know every single detail, right? Of
Yeah.
this person and their the preferences and what needs to be done. How do you also reinforce boundary in that kind of business model?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. My mind went to so many places as you were asking that. I mean, one thing I think about a lot is, and when you're talking about New York being a place where you burn out, I think that like entrepreneurs in New York are constantly going. Everyone in New York is constantly on the move and going. But I think
Right.
entrepreneurs, as specifically, are like focused on their business so much and having it grow and having it be successful. And you do have to, I believe, for you to be successful, you have to have some sort of boundaries. Otherwise, you will burn out and your business won't
For
be
sure.
successful because you have to be around to run your business and to give guidance to your team, even if you have a team that's running it. And I think for me, there were a lot of things that happened over the past few years in terms of like personal relationships in my life where I know we were talking a little bit about this, but I have been in therapy for the past 3 years because I actually had my family come out 3 years ago or like come back to the US for a long visit. And I was like, I need to be in
Mm,
the right headspace to
mm,
have like a long interaction with them and make sure that I'm really healthy to be able to like
right.
interact with them. And that kind of unraveled a lot of different things in my life to the point where, like, I had realized that, like, I had very strict boundaries. I'd created really, really firm boundaries that I needed to,
Right.
like, take down, but then other boundaries that were really, really soft for people that I really loved in my life, and I needed to make those firmer. Yeah, it was
I see.
really odd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think it's by the sound of it, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you have firm boundaries because of the work that you do. Like, the trade kind of requires you to have that. Versus in the personal side of boundary, it seems like that is also more driven by the culture, the community and what you've witnessed and what they did for you. And I think that in the Asian culture, like it's really hard to have boundaries with your parents because that's not their expectation. And if you don't want to
Yes.
like disappoint them, it's always just easier to cave, right? And I think the rewarding mechanism is perhaps a little bit different for your personal and professional life. And that's why you perhaps, responded to it differently. But what is the impact on like why do you think that you need to work on it as a result of it?
Yeah, I think there were moments that I realized that I was getting to a place where I was not having a good work-life balance.
Mm,
I always thought I had a pretty good work-life balance, and I realized a few years ago that I didn't, and I really
yeah.
needed to carve out myself to have yeah, be healthier and to turn my phone to do not disturb at 6 o'clock. Like, I have an iPhone. I think it's great that we can have, like, do not disturb times, like, just consistent. We
Hmm.
don't have to, like it's just manual. It's not manual, it's just automatic.
I
Not
I
checking,
find
like, my
myself
email.
I find myself scrolling anyway, like even in do not disturb mode. I'm like, I will manually open those apps and check whether I have messages, right?
Yeah. I feel like it helps I totally yeah, me too, but I also feel like at night, like, when if I'm watching a show, if I got a text, then I would start scrolling again, but if I
Yeah.
don't realize I have the text, then it will be less likely for me to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the same thing, like I have clients that text me at all hours of the night, and I'm totally fine with that. But I don't, I think if I'm like out enjoying dinner, I don't want to take time away from, the people that I love for a
Yeah.
client if it's not an emergency. So like, I don't want to be, those moments are really important and we won't get those moments back. So if
Hmm.
we can figure out a way to put up a boundary in that way to be able to have better relationships, it's only going to make our businesses stronger. It's going to make us
Yeah.
stronger. It's going to make our team stronger. And, speaking of like dinner, the reason I found this out is because I took myself out to dinner one
Mm.
night and received a customer email about something that had happened. And it was right before I walked into dinner and I thought I resolved it. And then during dinner, I was like looking at my phone because I went out to eat alone and I had a response from the client and they still were unhappy with like the response I
Mm.
had given them. And I had a panic
Mm.
attack in the middle of eating and I had to just walk out. I like stood up in the middle of eating, asked my server for the bill and just walked out and had to like go lay down outside in like the middle of Lincoln Center because I was having a panic attack. And that for me was like a light bulb went off in my head that weekend where I was like, I need to do something
Right.
different. I thought I was like taking care of myself and I realized that there was something like there were other things still going on. And that
Right.
was like ago.
Yeah. So, okay, so I'm just curious because I can totally relate with you. And I think that you were trying, right? Because you're taking yourself out for dinner. Like you're clearly
Yeah.
doing some self-care. What do you think was the trigger? Like now thinking back, what do you think was a trigger behind that panic attack? Like did you have time to reflect on it? Have you talked to your therapist and figure it out?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things that had happened. One, I was going through a separation at the time with my partner. And so there were a lot of other emotions and like things happening in my personal life that were taking a toll on me.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, I was trying to do self-care. I was like going to yoga and like doing all the things, taking myself out to
The
dinner.
textbook. It's like ask ChatGPT, how can I take care of myself? And you're just like checking off that list, right?
Yes, totally. But meanwhile, there's other things still happens. Yeah, I think for me there was the personal life stuff happening. And I think also I still really wanted to, and I still do. I really want to take care of my clients. Like so much of me, and I think, a big part of this comes from my mom is like the joy and the pride we feel for taking care of others and
Yeah.
for having other people feel taken care of and
Yeah.
having someone that was upset with the way they were provided service or felt like they weren't getting the service that they had expected. I think it was just all
Yeah.
about expect. Like I thought that I was doing something good for you, and your expectations weren't met. And I think
Yeah.
that hit me hard because along with all the personal stuff going on, it's like, oh, all of these expectations that we have in our life, if we can't live up to those, what does that mean? What does that mean about
Mm.
me if I to these
Mm.
expectations I've
Mm.
built up for that my family has for me, that my clients have for me? It just felt like it all came crashing down around that time.
Right. 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 So it's almost like you are already questioning some aspects of your life by going through some personal challenges. And this is like it's almost like last straw where
Yes.
people in your professional life started to also make you feel that way, right? Make you feel a certain way. And what I've read here is almost like, like if I don't take good care of other people, like maybe I'm not good enough, right? Something along that line. So what did you do about it? Because you said your definition of success shifted from never wanting to feel content, which I don't
Yeah.
understand. Maybe you can explain it a little bit, to learning balance. So can you walk us through, like, I guess, like you already talked about that break moment, but also like what's your takeaway from that? And how have you changed your life ever since?
Yeah. I think when I was younger, always wanted to I think I dreamed big for a long time. Like, I had a lot of what I felt were a lot of restrictions from my mother because she was an immigrant, she didn't know this country, she didn't know the community, and she wanted to protect my sister and I. And so we had a lot of restrictions in terms of, like, the people we could spend time with, the things we could
Hmm.
do, and the thing that she would always say to me was, when you're older, when you're an adult, you can do that. And so I always wanted to be an adult so that I could make my own decisions. I could do whatever I wanted to do. So I was always kind of pushing for that. And so I think that was a part of like never wanting to be content. Like it felt like if I'm content, I've kind of done it all. And then like, what's the point? Like, what else is there if
Mm,
I'm.
mm,
And I think now as an adult, what I've realized is, and like going through, the last few years of like changing and having all of these relationship changes and like work changes or work growth, like starting this second business, is that it's okay to be content and it's really good to be content because it means that like you've hit milestones that like you never thought you'd hit or like you didn't think you'd hit. And that's great. Like we should celebrate those little successes. I think that's really important.
right.
And it also means that there's something else you can do. Yeah, I think that that's the difference for me now is like, it's okay to feel happy and to feel
Yeah.
like into a space and settled into what you're doing.
Yeah. So I can totally relate to that. I think that like I also didn't allow myself to feel joy because I just felt like and a part of Chinese culture is that like you can't be arrogant or like you can't be
Yeah.
prideful of what you need to be humble, right? And if you started to feel like I have achieved XYZ, that just means you're not going to achieve more. Like that just felt like
Yes.
that was what the culture taught me to like stay humble and stay low key and like never feel like I'm, so and so big deal. And I think it worked to a certain extent. Like, it's definitely one of, different kinds of motivational fuel that you could have. But is that the healthiest, right? And will that propel you forward more? And will that also be there and hold you when you are, perhaps not the best of yourself. Like, I don't think so because it's, like it just tells you that you can't prioritize your own happiness, which is such a sad thing, right? For any human being to have this life, we all want to be happy. So why do we have beliefs that hold us back from happiness?
Yeah. I totally agree. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and like I just want to know, like, how did your life change after perhaps you had that, moment of awakening?
I think what's really interesting about that moment is that I had thought I was doing really well. I had like been, doing years of therapy at that point and like gotten through a lot of like really tricky moments. And I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had anxiety attacks in a while. I think I'm doing really well. And then that happened and I was like, I'm clearly not doing well, or like maybe this is like, the top of the mountain where like it's just, I just have to like descend from here. And I think that's what it was. It was like, okay, this is a hard moment. And like the way that you deal with this moment is either like you're going to keep having to deal with like moments like this, or you can learn how to deal with it now.
How have you changed after you realize that, you gotta prioritize your own happiness?
I think I think that the part that I was saying about expectations, like realizing that like expectations come from ourself, they come from other
Mm-hmm.
people, but we can't control other people's expectations, but we can control how we respond to those. And I think there is a lot of work. Like that was a natural internal response. That wasn't necessarily a choice I made, but to have that panic attack. But I did
Mm-hmm.
react in a way that like my body shut down because I felt danger.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we were talking your podcast with Jay and like these boundaries that you have to enforce and being able to allow myself to like enjoy moments, not look at my phone and set expectations with clients. Like it was a real turning
Mm.
point for me and my team talked a lot about like reinforcing the expectations on our clients of like, if you're messaging us out of office when we're not in, regular business hours, you need to message us over email. Or if you
Right.
text us, I'm going to respond until the next business day unless it's an emergency. And this is what constitutes an emergency because for
Mm-hmm.
everyone, it's subjective, although
Yes.
a lot of and think an emergency is like very objective, but it's a very
Right.
subjective thing, like what one person thinks is an emergency and what they think someone should respond to. But if there's nothing, we can do in the moment, then that it's not an emergency.
Yeah.
So I think being very clear about like what our boundaries are as a business and as an individual, I think was a big change for me. And I think that
Right,
really
right.
helped. Enforcing them myself, like being very clear with myself, like I am not going to go do this thing just because I feel like I need to, or like I'm not going to respond to this
Right.
message just because I feel like I need to. I'm going to like give myself a beat, maybe draft something, like put something out there to like get the energy out, but then like don't send it until the next day when I've had like a clear head and slept on it or
Yeah.
talked through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I just find it super interesting because you obviously come from a community, like your mom's from a community where the boundary, like it's almost like the less boundary you have, the more you're liked, right? And
Yes.
I have a feeling that maybe even, when she was doing her job, like perhaps she just need to focus on doing work versus for you, you actually needed to focus on enforcing those boundaries. And by it's like the scope of work, because like you still need to have that same intention in terms of serving people well, but like the way that you go about and do it is it's almost like pushing against your natural inclination of
Yeah.
like trying to do everything. So how did that manifest? Like, what are the fears that come out of in this process where you need to almost like protect yourself and also protect your business by having those boundaries in place?
Yeah. I mean, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's probably the same, like the fear of failure, the fear of like letting people down, the fear of not providing what people are paying for.
Mm,
And I think this is true for, for both the businesses, like even especially with Verdant, which is like a luxury item and people are paying a lot of money for it. And it's like so close and
right.
so intimate. Like if you're
Yeah.
not providing, there's so much wrapped into lingerie and like clothing and like who you're presenting to other people that and what's hidden, right? Like this is something that like
Hmm.
the majority of people won't see, but you see it and it holds so much of you. And so I think the fears that come up for me thinking about that and for like entrepreneurship is like not being who other people think you are. And realistically, it's not what other people think you are. It's who we're presenting to other people. So really when we think of how other people present us, it's really what we're trying to present to them. And if we're not presenting the person that we want
Hmm.
to present, that's on us. And I actually just had a whole therapy session about this on Tuesday, about like who we're presenting and who I'm presenting to other people and what it means if like they don't like that person or like if they're
Mm.
rejecting that.
What is your
And it's not
conclusion
about
from
them.
that? Yeah.
Just a reminder that it's not about them. It's like, well, it's not about me. It's like if they don't like me for whatever reason, it's not about me. It's like they have their
Yeah.
own thing and like that's fine. And like
Yeah.
I don't need to worry. I can't worry, like, or I can worry, but like what's the point of worrying? Because
Right.
I can't change their mind. And like, do I want to
Yeah.
change their mind? Like I don't need to have more friends. Like I have amazing
Yeah.
friends and I don't need more.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that person doesn't like me for whatever reason, like I can just be myself. And if they learn to like me, then that's great. And if they don't, then that's fine. But
Mm.
it's just a reminder of that because I think in the moment, if someone I had moments of this like today even, where I was like, no, like I sent this message. Are they gonna like think that I don't know what I'm talking about? Or like are they gonna think that what they're paying me is too much because like I'm not providing this thing that they wanted?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, doing the thing that I need to do. And
Yeah.
if they have an expectation, their job to tell me what their expectation is.
Right, right. So this is actually what I've noticed, interestingly, and I'm just journalizing it right now. But in general, I felt like women, especially actually, women from collective culture, like in, Asian women, we tend to have a very like external focus when it comes down to people, right? Like we are overly focused on, what will people think, what will people feel, like, am I being enough for them? Am I doing enough? Even though, like, I think that when we're asking these questions, we're doing way more than enough, right? Because your conscience will not let you disappoint the other person if you know that you are, like, you're not going to do that. And I think for guys, especially guys from more individualistic culture, like, I think that these two are, a little bit correlated just because, when you're a man, like, you need to achieve yourself. Right. And you need it to like provide, you need to make money. And this is like a very individualistic like energy where they needed to like they're forced to be like, okay, who am I? What am I gonna do? So it's a lot more about me, like what I'm gonna achieve, right? So these two sometimes like just a very like we have different problems that we need to solve almost. Like maybe for them, they need to know other people's feelings, and for us, we need to like know our feelings and like really paying attention to those and be our own champion, right? And that's a hard lesson
Yeah.
for a lot of us.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't even get to that. I mean, I think what you're
Yeah.
saying makes sense, but I've never thought about it that way. And I think a lot of people wouldn't even think about that, or think outside of themselves even.
Right, right, right. And I think it's a beautiful lesson you're learning because I felt like that probably will really kind of shape and transform your message in Verdun where how do you think that, like you wanted to have women feel or, solve the problems, like it's a very intimate problem, right? Because lingerie is such an intimate business where it touches
Yeah.
a very vulnerable part of somebody.
Yeah. And I think the way you see yourself, like, I think a lot of women here, I think especially in the Asian community, like women think of lingerie as like if I'm wearing, even if you're wearing like a bralette, like something really simple or like cotton,
Hmm.
bikini, like you're like, oh, that's not lingerie, but everything is lingerie. Like anything that you wear is like the base, like the essentials are lingerie. And it's like the way you think about it. And I think if you transition your mindset of like, I'm wearing this piece for myself, it makes me feel confident. It makes me feel
Hmm.
comfortable. I feel empowered to like go through my day being X, Y, or Z. Like I am going to go into this meeting feeling amazing. And no one knows that I'm wearing like this beautiful lace
But
bra,
I know.
but I know and I feel amazing. And so it's going to make
Yeah.
me feel super confident in this meeting where I have to like negotiate my salary or like
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that it can make you feel, and no one even has to know that.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it, right? Because then you know it's 100% for you. Like you are on your own team.
Yeah. And I think so many women don't think of luxury that way. They think of it as like
Yeah.
for a man or for their
For a
partner.
man or
Totally.
for their
And
partner.
that's like totally. So many brands. I mean, I think the vast majority, that was one big thing when we were starting this, is like we didn't set it for the male gaze. Like we have designed the entire brand for women and for the people
Mm.
wearing the collection. Like so many
Mhm.
brands see them and like women are standing in front of a mirror, like lounging on a couch, like in their lingerie, or like outside without like any clothes. And you're like, that's not how you wear lingerie. Like you can wear
Mhm.
lingerie wear, but like you're not just standing there not moving. And like so our whole design and our whole idea of the brand is that like this is lingerie made for women by women in New York by New York women.
Mm.
And
Mm.
we are all constantly on the move, and this is something that's going to make you feel good when you put it on at the start of the day and when you take it off at the end of the day, and like you forget that
Mhm.
you're wearing it, but you feel good when you're wearing
Right, right, right. No, I can totally relate to that. I think that it's just such a blind spot for a lot of us growing up, like it's kind of funny because when I was growing up, like my mom would tell me, "Oh, you can't make your boob look too big, like it's gonna attract attention, And I got this, in high school, like I actually got shamed for that. I have like a bigger size breast, and the guys will be like, "Oh my god!" Like they just think that like you're not supposed to show it, but in the meantime it's like a weird twisted psychology. I felt like it's almost like they see it, right? Because you're a teenager boy, you're like, oh, I want to see that, but in the meantime they're like, oh my god, you're not supposed to do it. And it just has that like weird
it.
shame in me where I had for a long time, like just a wrong relationship with my body because my mom would pick out my underwear, lingerie at the time, and she would just choose like the most conservative one, right? So like for me, I'm just like, oh, maybe I should just go with that. Like that's what a good girl is and what a good girl does.
Yeah, it's really confusing. And I think that, that gets so ingrained in us. I mean, I think what you're talking about, like the confusion of like, I'm supposed to be like, as a woman, what is my worth? And I like people should see me in a certain way, especially like having this facade of like being put together and being pretty and presenting in a certain way. But then like you can't look at me as well, right? So it's like, which one
Yeah.
is it? It's really
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's like even here, like corporate America, like I have a lot of girlfriends. We worked at this like multi-brand lingerie store, and like we wore lingerie for people to see the lingerie so that you could sell it. And like it was also like we all loved it so much. And so we weren't afraid to show it. And then I had friends that like then went into corporate America, like corporate
Mm,
retail, fashion, and they had to like hide their lingerie. Like they had to like wear
yeah,
nude t-shirt bras and like they
yeah,
couldn't wear like they had to get a whole new wardrobe. So it's like still here. It's still a part of the world, it's still a part of New
yeah,
York, it's still here, but finding ways to, like, make it special for yourself, I think is really, really important, and reminding yourself that, like, you're wearing it for you, and if, like, someone doesn't like it,
yeah.
like,
It
that's
doesn't
a
matter.
I think that's an issue that yeah, they need to deal with
Yeah.
because, like, why don't they like it? Why is it an issue for
Right.
them?
Right. Yeah, it's almost like, don't wear a mask for yourself, right? If you want to wear a mask, now wear it for other people. Like for yourself, be
Yeah,
honest, and you'll probably benefit from it. I think a lot of people just kind of confuse these two. Is they're like, oh, if I need to be like X, Y, and Z, like putting on a persona, like I just need to change. Like you don't need to change who you are. You just need to change your presentation.
yes, yeah. I
So
mean, I think even, like,
yeah.
people thinking of, like, "This is me," versus I've been thinking about this a lot just with, different relationships, but, like, people saying, like, "Well, this is who I am, so take it or leave," and it's like, that's not really who you are, that's, like, a part of
That's not who you
your
are. Yeah.
personality, that's, like, not who you are, so, like,
Yeah.
you're kind of choosing to be that thing, and it's just a piece, and it's not, like, deep ingrained internal,
Yeah. You can be whoever you want to be. Honestly, like I think that we have so much fluidity like in our way of thinking and perceiving the world and how we perceive ourselves. Like if you want to change, like at some point it's like you can change if you want to. Like it takes a second, but I think it takes a long time to get there. And that's why people are like, oh, this is just who I am. Like, maybe they don't want to embark on the journey, right? They don't want to look on the other side. So
Yeah. And I think also like, yeah, you can change who being cognizant of like wanting to have that change and then putting into motion the
mhm.
steps to get point. Because some things it's like, oh yeah, it's really easy. Like I can want to change my fashion, or I can want to change the way I'm presenting to people. But then like I think the internal parts of you where like you really want to change something can take longer. And you can also not even realize that like you're doing certain
Yeah,
things
yeah,
until
yeah.
someone gives you that feedback.
Until they give you the feedback or you become aware of like the consequences of keeping doing certain things, right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I felt like this is one thing, and I know this is an interview, but I just want to interject a little bit. I think it's an important point. I think a lot of people kind of they neglect the importance of like doing all this work, and which you are clearly doing yourself, is that like what happens, and this is my experience, is that in the end what happens is that the period between you getting stuck from like wanting to change to changing, or like not even you're not aware of the change at all to change, will drastically reduce. So what that
Yeah.
does to you is that it will save you a ton of time to be the person who you want to be, right? Because some people never reach
Yeah.
that for their entire life.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you. I think that's totally right. And I think like the self-awareness aspect of it of like, okay, this is happening. How do I change it? Yeah. The way it shortens, I think can also be really fun too. Like when you realize that that's happening, like I've had a few moments of that recently where I'm like, oh, I can be this like other person and like that's really fun and like it's easy to do it when you like continue to do that thing. Like I grew up figure skating and one of my coaches would her phrase was practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. And I feel like that's like a perfect like moment for that where it's
Mm,
like you
yeah.
to do the same thing and say like I'm going to change, but if you continue to do the same things, you're not changing. Like change
Yeah.
is like making
Change is change.
those yeah.
Yeah. Change is a choice, right? Like even if you do the same thing over and over again, that's not change, right? You needed to like have conscious awareness to be like, this is who I want to be and what are the ways to achieve it. And let's do, micro step every single time to achieve that goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and, like, maybe you won't figure it out right away, but, like, yeah, making the steps, like, constantly trying to take steps to, like, make that change.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, it's like working out. It's like, I wanna be a lot more fit. Like, what do I need to do? And if, like, you just think about it, nothing's happening. But, like, doing
Yeah.
little things, walking more, like, changing, like, what you're eating. Yeah. I feel like there's so many different examples of it in life. But, yeah, you have to
Yeah,
be
for
conscious
sure.
and take the steps.
Yeah, for sure. And bet on yourself. And looking back at all the
Yeah.
transitions in your business, in your relationships, in your identity, what part of your story do you think that most women need to hear right now to feel less alone?
I think we hit on it a little bit earlier, Crystal, but reminding yourself that it's okay to like take time for yourself, and it's really important to take
Hmm.
time for yourself and to be gentle with yourself. It was actually something like one of my clients recently lost her dog, who was like her best friend. They did
Mm,
every other. That was like the first thing that I sent her, like when she knew she had to that she was gonna die. I was like, please make sure you're being gentle with yourself. Like, I know
hmm.
you want to put all of her and like what is happening with her, but like make sure you're being gentle with yourself as well and doing what's best for you, because ultimately,
Hmm.
again, like you can take care of something else if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and like there's so many different ways to do that, whether it's like adjusting your schedule or taking like carving time out of your day, like an hour out of your day where like you don't interact with anyone, just to have like peace and quiet, or like taking a walk in the middle of the day, or
Right.
something that like you eat. Like there's so many different ways to do it, and just
Hmm.
recognizing it's like writing down what your schedule is every day and like pinpointing the moments where like you felt stressed and like, okay, what can I do differently in this moment? Again, like talking about change, like this is a moment that I could change and I can do it slowly and see if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Like you don't permanent changes. You can make tiny little changes and see if they help. And do something different if
Right.
it doesn't help. Being really
Right.
kind, thoughtful with the way you treat yourself, I think is really, really
Right.
important, because especially as women, we don't do that. We're constantly thinking of others, like you said. And yeah, we can't take care of others if we can't take care of ourselves.
Right. And I think that people underestimate how important these moments are, like how much of a return on your time investment on these moments can generate for you and your well-being and also your productivity, right? Long term. Like
Oh,
when
yeah.
you are stressed, you're like, oh, I don't want to do, like all these relaxation, whatever, de-stressing things. Like I don't have time for that. But soon as you take like some time for that, you come back, like you have 5 times more productivity, right? So it's almost like counterintuitive, but it does build into the inner discipline that we all need to have to like counter, our natural tendency.
Totally. I mean, I'm really grateful that like I'm an entrepreneur and I can really like figure out my own schedule and work the times I want to. But I was talking about this with someone the other day of like, I am really productive in the evening, and we were just talking about this now. Like I'm a night owl. So
Yeah.
I often thought of like my day to like do like my own errands and like see my friends. And then I will work like very late at night, like get a bunch of
Right.
emails out, do a bunch of and like do a bunch of studying on something, because that's like the best for me and I can still enjoy
Yeah.
so much of my day. Like
Yeah.
I found a really good balance. I think that's like a really big gift that entrepreneurs can give themselves if they like allow themselves to work with like what's best for them and not stick to like you don't have to do a 9 to 5 if that doesn't work for you. Like that's the whole joy of
Yeah.
like having your own
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, yeah. If they allow themselves to do that, right? Because some people they will just go against it. They were like, "Oh, I'm gonna work like 24/7 now. Like I can't do that or something." But anyway, so last question I always ask my guests on the show, and you probably know this, is that I wanted you to fill in the sentence, "I am proud of myself because."
I am proud of myself because I have invested in myself and invested in my community to the point where I feel really content and joyful and can give back to others in service.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Eleanor. Like, I really appreciate our conversation. I think there's so much in the conversation and really appreciate you to be on the show today.
Thank you, Crystal. This was so much fun. We talked about so many things I wasn't expecting, but it's
Yeah.
really, really, really great.
If this conversation sparked something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you are building a more true life, not just more impressive, we would love to hear your story. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Asian Rebel Club and join our newsletter for more ways to connect. Link in the description. Until next time.